Frost, extremely offended by how Broly had insulted him, attacked Broly with several bursts of ki fired from his finger half a meter. You are much smaller than I am. It was evident that he was as self-conscious about his size, just like Frieza. Broly, dodging all his attacks with great ease said, continuing with the mockery, I am still a growing boy, however, you are and you will be a fucking dwarf all your fucking sad and miserable existence. I would like to feel sorry for you, but, you don't even deserve that. Frost, who could not stand that Broly was mocking about his biggest complex counterattack increasing the rhythm of Ki's attacks, fuck you. You will be shorter than me, so short that I can crush you with just lift my leg. But Broly, who had grown tired of that childish game, deflected with his fingers all the ki attacks of Frost, and before Frost could be surprised by what he had just done, he said, I find your lack of faith disturbing. I will be very, very tall. While Broly was saying those words, Frost felt pressure in his neck, which pressed him harder every second. It was as if an invisible hand was strangling him. Frost understood it perfectly. Damn, in this way I cannot beat him. Frost, who was in his first transformation, or involution, while he was being suffocated erotically without being able to escape due to the great difference of power between him and his rival, began to concentrate energy. Broly smiled satisfied. It was what he was waiting for from the first moment, his transformation. Great, finally I will have a minimally interesting combat. I'm such a good person that I'll squeeze you a little less so you can transform more quickly. After a brilliant explosion, Frost's transformation ended, but it wasn't the one Broly expected. It was the third transformation of Frieza, also known as the Big Head transformation, without a doubt the ugliest transformation that exists. Broly, disappointed by Frost's lack of intelligence in judging his opponent, and insulted by being underestimated by him for not using his most powerful form, decided to continue verbal and physical abuse. Fuck. You're so ugly that could be exposed in a contemporary art museum. Is your plan to defeat me to provoke an overload of ugliness? Ha ha ha. As much as you make your head grow, you will not be smarter. Fuck, you are ridiculous. Frost, annoyed by Broly's constant insults, went into a rage. Shut up, damn monkey. Frost, with 2 energy balls prepared in each hand, accelerated at full speed towards Broly, but in less than a second, he disappeared from his position. He turned his head several times to find him, but it was useless. He was unable to see him, but his instinct told him that something bad was about to happen. And he was right. Someone from behind grabbed him by the far end of his long head and started giving him a lot of painful kicks and knees in the head, back and neck. Frost was being beaten mercilessly. Broly, taking advantage of his small size, as if he were a koala, grabbed Frost's head, and while punishing his skull with his knuckles he continued insulting. Come on, big head, do something. Is this all the strength you have? What a shit emperor you are. At the end of his sentence, Broly decided to stop playing and gave him a great kick, throwing Frost several kilometers away, impacting on the surface of a nearby asteroid. From the spacecraft in the distance, all the crew that accompanied their beloved emperor believed they were hallucinating. Emperor Frost, possibly the most powerful mortal in the universe, was receiving a sovereign beating. Emperor Frost, all the crew members shouted. Frost had been unconscious for a few seconds. He was hurt, but not badly, yet his pride was. He, the emperor of the universe, the one who manipulated wars on all planets, was being humiliated by an unknown child in an unknown place. When he looked up, he saw 7 strange objects approaching at incredible speed towards him, so quickly that he was unable to react. They were semicircular objects of Kaioshin, the hardest and most resistant material in the Dragon Ball universe, which were created by Broly with his materialization magic and fired at Frost with his telekinesis. Those semicircular objects were stuck in the asteroid, immobilizing the body of Frost. Both arms, both legs, tail, waist and neck have been surrounded by those objects, which seemed indestructible. Without having much time to get rid of his bonds, he realized that his enemy was concentrating a great mass of energy in front of him. Several miles away, Broly was preparing a giant Omega Blaster, and while preparing his attack, he telepathically said, "If this is all you have, I guess I cannot have more fun. I expected a little more from the person who proclaims himself the Emperor of the Universe. Can I keep your title maybe? Ha ha ha. I give you 10 seconds. If in those 10 seconds, you don't show your true powers and fight with me, I will disintegrate you, since you will have lost all your value to me." Frost, faced with the threat of death and the great humiliation he had received so far, had no choice but to resort to his latest transformation. The reason why I don't use this transformation is because it's hard to control my energy in this form. Feel honored, monkey child. Because you will be the first person to die at the hands of this transformation, he said while charging more energy than the previous time. Broly, seeing how Frost's combat power increased drastically by seconds, he smiled with satisfaction. Great, after several minutes of warm-up, the moment I was looking for finally arrived. I need someone with more fighting power than me to exceed my limits, and only in this transformation you meet the requirements. Like Frieza, Frost had 4 transformations, not counting the golden, at that moment with the same combat power from the moment he was born, since he never needed to train seriously, although he has trained in the battle between the Universe 6 and Servan. Like Frieza, Frost had 4 transformations, not counting the golden, with the same combat power from the moment he was born, since he never needed to train. In the first form, his combat power is 530.000. In the second form, his combat power is 1.060.000. In the third form, the transformation with which he had been fighting a few moments ago, his combat power is 2.120.000. In the fourth and last form, its combat power was located between 4.240.000 and 120.000.000. Broly had been waiting for the moment to find someone with a power superior to his to check his capacities. The total base power of Broly was 15 million. Saiyan have a limit of power in his base form, which is impossible to overcome if they don't reach a new transformation. For normal Saiyans, his power stagnates at 3 million, just the limit that Goku reached in Frieza's saga, before becoming Super Saiyan. However, Broly's limit, being the legendary Super Saiyan, was 5 times larger. Limit that Broly reached years ago. Thanks to his transformation of True Saiyan, his combat power multiplied by 10, reaching the sum of 150 million, the same combat power of an ordinary level 1 Super Saiyan. His raw power was far superior to Frost, but he was currently using the cloning technique. The body that was fighting with Frost only had 50% of its current power. Therefore, transformed into True Saiyan right now, his combat power was 75.000.000. Frost had just transformed into his last form, his original form, and his arrogance and confidence returned to him. I'm going to make you pay for all the humiliation. I will torture you until you ask for death, and then I will continue torturing you until you die, he said telepathically. Broly, with his usual casual attitude, replied, whatever you say, shitty dwarf. However, before that, what do you think about stopping this little ball? Broly threw him the giant Omega Blaster that he had been preparing, an Omega Blaster with an energy of 90.000.000 of power level, which he was using to force Frost to use most of his power from the beginning. A somewhat dangerous form of motivation. Frost, who was standing on the asteroid that Broly had thrown at him, saw that huge sphere of energy coming towards him at great speed. Realizing the great energy that this attack had, Frost began to increase his combat power, without holding back in the least, contrary to what he had always been doing. Frost didn't have time to counterattack that Omega Blaster with another sphere of ki, so he decided to stop using his hands and telekinesis. The Omega Blaster struck with Frost, and he held it with his hands and feet, and tried by all means to return it to Broly, while he watched him from the skies with superiority. After a few seconds of Forcejo, once Frost increased his combat power to 100 million, he was able to direct that giant Omega Blaster to its owner, who was in the same position from where he had launched his attack. When the giant green energy sphere reached the position of its owner, exploded. It exploded in an extremely violent manner, so much so that the shockwave changed the orbit of several satellites orbiting a desert planet in the vicinity. Frost, with a wicked smile, laughed uncontrollably, as if he were a lunatic. Ha ha ha. This is the consequence of making fun of Frost, the Emperor of the Universe. What are you saying now, damn monkey? How does it feel to die for your own attack? However, his celebration was somewhat interrupted. What I am saying now is that you should review things before taking them for granted. It's what distinguishes a good scientist from a fraudster social scientist who performs a lousy study on something that is only a cover to justify some pre-established conclusions, said Broly, who appeared a few dozen meters from Frost and was walking quietly towards him. Frost, somewhat disturbed by Broly's usual arrogance, and because he didn't understand how Broly had been able to appear so quickly from his back without him noticing. he started a conversation. Wow, I didn't understand half the nonsense you said, but I thought you had died like an idiot for your own attack a few seconds ago. How have you been able to get here so fast? I think it's not the first time you've done this since the beginning of the fight. Broly, he was more arrogant than Frost said, die like an idiot? Ha ha ha, how pathetic you are. You've seen me teleport before and you not only have to ask what I've done, but you also believed that I had died from my own attack despite my ability. Moreover, you dare to call me an idiot? You're the Emperor of the Idiots. Frost, irritated by Broly's attitude, twisted his face in anger, but, in a few seconds he calmed down because of the superiority he thought he now had. Okay. I cannot wait to see how long you can have this attitude in front of me. You will regret having made me show this transformation. Or rather, I'll make sure you regret doing it, when I pluck every last hair on your body and cut off that ridiculous tail you have, before killing you. Broly, unperturbed by Frost's threat, came within inches of him and answered. The only thing I will regret is surely not to tear your tongue. Only the strong have the right to brag in the middle of a fight, and you. You should be quiet until I give you permission. Stupid half-shit. After those words of provocation, Frost, furious, started the fight once more, rushing towards Broly with his punch. The fight had begun again. Frost started the attack, throwing a rain of punches in race towards Broly. However, Broly, with his arms crossed, for greater cockiness, began to dodge all the attacks. Frost, for more than 10 seconds Frost was trying to hit Broly with everything he could, with his legs, his arms, even his tail, but everything was useless. It was like trying to catch some kind mutant fly. Impossible, this cannot be happening. I'm clearly faster than him. How can he dodge all my attacks? Frost's fighting power right now was close to 105.000.000, while Broly's was still 75.000.000. Greater combat power means having a higher level of strength, endurance and speed, except for transformations or techniques that sacrifice one stat to forcefully increase another. In addition, Frost demons were a race that stood out for its speed. The fact that Frost was unable to reach him was inconceivable, not only for him, but for anyone who could see the fight. How was Broly able to show this superiority with that discrepancy of power and speed? It was due to two reasons. 1. His Jugun. He can see minimal movements, and predict the attacks of opponents even before they are executed, anticipating all of Frost's attacks. 2. His Kin. Broly was using the Kin at a low intensity, which allowed him to improve all his abilities without increasing his fighting power. The Kin at its maximum kappa. City multiplied by 3 its effective fighting power, although now only was at his 10%. With these two advantages, Frost was unable to hit him. Broly, levitating, continued to dodge all of Frost's attacks in a millimetric way, making Frost believe that he needed little to reach him, frustrating him even more. However, Broly had already tired of evading. What's happening to you? Are you so useless that I have to teach you to hit too? It has to be done like this, said Broly, accelerating quickly towards him, giving him a forceful kick in the belly. Gwaj. Frost received a great damage by the kick, so much that his body seemed to writhe around the impact, but he smiled. While his body was still shacked by the impact, his tail quickly wrapped around Broly's leg, preventing him from flying off hundreds of meters by the impact, and, above all, limiting Broly's movements. Frost, seeing that he couldn't reach him, had waited for the moment when Broly attacked to grab him, preventing him from escaping. Oh, not bad, thought Broly. Die. Frost, using practically all his power, threw a punch in Broly's belly, impacting. Broly was affected by that attack, recoiling from the inertia of the blow, but because Frost was still tying his leg with his tail, Broly didn't move. Because his attack took effect, Frost entered a state of frenzy, creating a barrage of punches that completely hit Broly's body and face. Take this. Take this. Take this. Take this. Take this. You like this? You like this? You like this? Ha 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 ha. Where is the arrogance you had a few moments ago now? But when he went to throw his last punch, when finishing that sentence, Broly, with some blood on his face, caused by small wounds, he intercepted it with his hand. It is exactly where it was before. I congratulate you, you are the second person who has managed to hurt me, although of course, I allowed you to hit me a little bit. I'm sorry to spoil your fun, but I am one of those who prefer to give and not receive. Palm. Broly, still grabbed by Frost's tail, gave him a terrible punch in the mouth. Oyahayahaya. Frost writhed in pain, but immediately responded with another punch, which Broly stopped with his elbow and countered with his other hand, giving him a punch in the belly. Damn! He cried out in helplessness. Still caught by the tail, another rain of punching and kicking began between the two, although it was evident who was being the winner of that crossfire. Of every 4 hits that managed to hit his target successfully, 3 were blows from Broly, and 1 was from Frost, but despite the handicap he was in, he didn't want to let go of Broly's leg. One of the reasons why he was reluctant to let him go was because of his speed and ability to dodge. He didn't know if he could catch him again, and the second reason. Fucking monkey, don't think you're superior to me, I have many aces under my sleeve yet. From the bioarmor of Frost's right arm appeared a needle that oozed what appeared to be a potent poison with paralyzing and somnolent properties, and pointing it to the leg he was holding with his tail, threw a punch at it. Die, dumbass. Frost's punch hit Broly's leg squarely, just as he had planned. Ha ha ha. Perfect, now you are helpless before me. Taking advantage of the fact that the venom of his needle should have taken effect and that it would last a few seconds. With his other hand, he tried to gather almost all his ki on his finger to give him the final blow, which he could prepare and launch without worries, but... Crack. Ay. Broly grabbed him by the finger with which Frost was preparing his attack and twisted it, breaking it in several places. Didn't your mother tell you that it's impolite to point out people? Broly said as he continued to grab his broken finger, to increase his agony. While Frost tried to cool his mind due to the great pain he was suffering. His mind went into chaos. He didn't understand how Broly could be well after being poisoned, but before he could put it into words. Your next line will be, how can you be well after being punctured by my poisonous needle? Right? Broly said, doing a cool pose. Frost, practically at the same moment that Broly was talking, said, how can you be well after being punctured by my poisonous needle? What? His mind had gone blank. Not only did he know about the needle, it was as if he had read his mind. Broly, strutting like never before said in JoJo style, said, the answer is, I used my telekinesis to return the needle inside its case moments before the impact, so it never clicked on me. Frost looked at the bioarmor of his arm and verified that someone had forced the mechanism of the needle. Alarmed, he wanted to ask another question, but... Your next line will be, how did you know I had a needle hidden in my bioarmor? No one had ever found her. Right? Broly said, anticipating Frost's words. Frost, once again, at the same moment that Broly was talking said, how did you know I had a needle hidden in my bioarmor? No one had ever found her. What? Impossible! Exclaimed Frost, who believed he was living a nightmare. Does this child have the ability to read the mind? Broly, tightening Frost's broken finger. Oh. I'm sorry, but I cannot read the mind, just all the idiots think the same. Moreover, the answer is, I know it because nothing can escape my eye, also because I had seen it in the manga and anime. By the way, do you plan to continue grabbing me much longer? Those who see us can make wrong ideas, said Broly while the part of the leg that was being held by Frost began to emit a green glow. That green glow grew into a disc of energy that swirled around his leg, cutting Frost's tail into pieces. Ayahai. Due to the pain, Frost squealed uncontrollably at the same time that he recoiled at great speed to get away from Broly. A fight against a Frost demon is not a fight if you don't cut off his tail, ha 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 ha, said Broly as he kicked the air, sending the cutting disc towards Frost. Frost, who could react in time, dodged the attack that came directly to his head, cutting only part of his cheek. Impossible. This is impossible. I am stronger than you. My energy is superior. How is it possible that I am losing like this? Frost yelled at Broly, demanding an explanation. It's because my martial arts and other techniques are superior. Weak people created martial arts in order to make the most of their weakness to win people, animals, and beings stronger than them. Only an idiot believes that a bodybuilder who raises more than 100 kilograms in a gym is stronger in a fight than a thin, experienced martial artist who knows where to hit and move. Stop talking, if this is all you have. I've already lost enough time with you. You have turned out to be a disappointment. I haven't needed even 20% of my skills to crush you like a cockroach. At least you have helped me exercise a bit. As a reward, I will give you the honor of seeing me fight with some of my real power. Try not to die. Before Frost could process all that avalanche of information, Broly had appeared in front of him, and using his Kaien to the fullest capacity, he punched him in the face. Frost was shot several kilometers, but during his journey, Broly reappeared from his back, giving him another blow that sent him in another direction, repeating this sequence dozens of times. In one of them, Broly with both fists, and as if Frost were a volleyball, he threw him on the asteroid again, just in front of his torn of tail. Ah. Frost was full of wounds and bruises, his face was practically unrecognizable and he had hardly any energy. Just as he was getting up, leaning his knees and knobs against the ground, Broly landed on him, sinking him into the ground once more. Broly, stretching as if he had just taken a nap, advanced towards the mutilated piece of Frost's tail. It's been quite fun, I hope you've had a good time too, hahaha. Frost, trying to get up one more time, damn. I'll kill you. Broly, picking up Frost's tail, said as if he were the emperor of the universe, if I were you, I wouldn't get up. Kneel. After those words, Frost's body began to gain weight, several times. It was as if the gravity around him was dramatically increasing, at least 400 times higher than normal. Damned demon. What are you doing? What is this? Frost said, kneeling as he tried to get up without success. Broly walked slowly towards him and materializing a throne in front of the kneeling Frost sat down and said, I am simply ordering the Emperor of the Universe to kneel before me, and I see that he knows how to obey. Know your place, little shit. Well, I've had a great time with you, but I think I should leave you for today, I have better things to do. Oh, by the way, I'm taking your tail, it may be used to make a broth or something. We'll see each other again. Saying these words, Broly stepped away from the throne and stored Frost's tail into his formless realm. After a few seconds, the gravity returned to normal, and Frost got up as best he could. I will take revenge, I swear I will take revenge. I will personally take care that there is not a single corner in the universe where you can hide or live. I will hunt you day and night with all the means at my disposal. It is not a threat, it is an oath, Frost said with the veins of his head trembling. His anger had reached a limit he didn't think possible. Broly, who was about to disappear with his Kai, turned arrogantly to where the badly wounded Frost was and said, all your means. Does that also include your galactic pirates? If you know what is good for you, you will not try to bother me. Or I will not be so good the next time. Goodbye. Broly had disappeared, teleporting to another place. The threat had disappeared, Frost was safe from that psychopathic child, but for Frost, his biggest nightmare had just begun. He knows, my biggest secret, if anyone finds out about this, I'm finished, it'll be my end. I have to kill him to take revenge. I have to kill him to silence him. Either way I have to kill him. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.